Hey traders, welcome to Charts and Coffee. Hope everyone's doing great. We are taking a look at the morning in terms of here we go. We're taking a look at the morning, gang, in terms of the hot zones that are on the calendar. So a lot of folks ask me, Rog, what's one of the better ways we can start off our morning? And it's not necessarily the charts. A lot of times the best way to start off a morning is to take a look at an economic calendar. Now, there's three calendars that I use. Uh, the first one is Forex Factory, and don't let the word Forex throw you. If you're unfamiliar with this calendar, this is where the term hot zones came from. So, in my first book, I was trying to differentiate between every run-of-the-mill data release, of which there are many, and those specific ones that are high impact, high volatility, and more macroeconomically important: jobs, growth, inflation, right? So by separating just the run of the mill gazillion data releases every week, every month, we separate to those ones that we need to pay attention to. Enter Forex Factory. The term hot zone came from the little color of the icon, because as I was learning more about the foreign exchange, which is to say, learning more about 8 other central banks, or really 7 other central banks aside from the US, that I was already familiar with, having been traded for over a decade before Forex was available here in the US in late 1999, I realized, oh, I don't really know a lot about what's happening in Europe and the UK and Australia and Japan and Switzerland. I didn't know. And so Forex Factory made it really easy. When is the UK GDP? Oh, that was Wednesday. When are Australian unemployment changes? If I'm in the New Zealand dollar, the Australian dollar, those things matter. So really conveniently, they put the little red icon. Well, to me, that was red hot. And that's a red hot time zone. There you go. Hot zones. Every morning, gang, kick off your morning with a look at either Forex Factory. I would start there. Once you get the hang of which releases are a hot zone, then you can go to whatever calendar you like. I think Trading Economics is a really good one. What it does really, really well is sometimes there are FOMC speaking events that are not listed on Forex Factory, right? Every site gets to determine what economic events are important to them. So Forex Factory might say, hey, this is important, and Trading Economics might say, oh, these are important as well. Some of the things that Trading Economics does really well are some of the FOMC events, and also the different bill auctions, the mortgage rates, Challenger Gray Christmas data, the API data. So there are other hot zones in Trading Economics, and they'll break down a headline hot zone into different pieces. So they're both going to do more or less the same thing, but I'll look at both of them: Forex Factory and Trading Economics. Gang, believe me, it's worth the 3.5 minutes it's going to take you to look at the hot zones that are coming up today and look at tomorrow, right? Because sometimes we're looking ahead to a certain event. Now, during earnings season, I will use a site called Estimize. This is a site that a buddy of mine started many, many years ago, back from my StockTwits days. And he said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to start grabbing this kind of force rank process that used to be very common in the 80s. And I forget why they stopped doing this, but basically it's kind of like Kickstarter meets trading data. Traders all over the planet get to put in their opinion of what earnings are going to be. And they have found that their process for whisper numbers is one of the most accurate. So I use Estimize around earnings season. But Estimize also has that same type of force rank, if you will, around data. So there's a little bit of breakdown on data, gang. And remember, I'm not trading the data. I don't give, like, for example, yesterday's CPI, hot, cold, non-event, event, doesn't matter. That's the wrong mindset. The mindset is there's a hot zone at 8:30, and then we head on over to the only place that really does matter, the first of the only place that matter, and that is What is the Federal Reserve expected to do? Why do we look at these hot zones? Because they land here. They land at the target rate probabilities. That's the decoder ring, gang, for macroeconomics. Multisyllabic nonsense. Yes, sometimes it feels that way. But this is where we can say, oh, that's what it means, right? And of course, then we'll take a look at the NASDAQ, Dow, S&P, bonds, euro, and see how that data and what it means to other symbols. All right, gang. So as always, I hope that helps. I do get questions quite a bit about that topic. And the first thing we talk about every morning when we start our day trades, I know a lot of you just finished the live class. Of course, it is available for replay. You can still join us. That means you get a month at minimum with me in the mastery. I don't know how that works now if the class is done, but call the office. You can check it out. You get the HPMRs. You get my day trading indicator toolkit, which is in addition to the HPMRs. And of course, you get trades with me. How are we doing so far this week? Well, yesterday we had a 3x winner in Amazon. The day before we had a 2x winner in JP Morgan. There are moves. I'm not saying this to be braggadocious, although, well, maybe a little bit, tooting my own horn. Boop, bop. All right. But aside from that, our members got these trades as well. So there are trades to be had. There are trades that are working. We just have to follow the process. And by the way, let me give you all one tip. This is something that I think is helping a lot of our class members and the Sector Secrets Mastery members. Wait about 10 to 15 minutes to get directional and relative performance down, right? If you're missing that process, you're probably doing the right thing for quote unquote the wrong symbol. So you're putting on a great trade, but it's in a symbol that's not following through. And that's going to happen too, right? I had a trade on in JP Morgan. It won, it hit a first target, but it didn't have one of those Amazon days. The day before JP Morgan did, yesterday it was Amazon. Who knows who it'll be today? But I'll tell you this much. When you take a look at what's going on, I've been saying this a lot. I hope I sound like a skipping record. Consistency is boring, and boring is what I like to be when it comes to trading. Don't let the folks who are talking about the market circling the drain and that September is usually bearish. Look, those are tendencies. They're not trades. We trade what we see, not what we think. We trade the market we have, not the one we wish we had, right? It's not about what I think. It's not about what I feel. None of those things. So I hope that you're just following price action, that you're following volume, that you're following volatility, and of course, price, and trading every morning as nimbly right now as possible. Okay, so let's get to it. Shout out to our Simpler Essentials room. Great to see you all. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and type them on in. And I see Christian has a question here right off the bat. PWR on the daily. Sure. So a lot of folks say, Rog, how do your indicators work? Whether that be day trading, whether that be swing trading. A lot of folks don't realize that a lot of the tools that I have are the same on the daily as they are the 1 hour. And a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of them are the same. So the process is not that different. It's just a different set of tools to allow me to understand 5-minute behavior versus 1 hour behavior versus daily. But the grab candles, the multi-trend, they are a staple on everything, right? Okay, so looking for October calls, but would appreciate my thoughts on if this uptrend is busted. Not yet, not yet. And the reason I say not yet, let me grab my drawing tools. Where the heck are they? All right, here we go. So if I'm looking at my drawing tools, let's grab them here. There we go. I want to, boom. There's my drawing tool showing you the first red grab candle, right? Grab candles are amazing. GRAB stands for green, red, and blue. Little hitch, just a little hitch here in the multi. Not yet, my friend. It's a little bit of volatility to the downside. It's culminated into a little bit of a wobble in the uptrend, but the uptrend is still intact for now. So PWR doesn't have a sector ETF with high concentration. Yeah, so it can be tricky to figure out who it's tracking with. And so here's what I would tell you also to check out. Christian, here's another thing you can do. Let me take you on over to TradingView and look at PWR here. Right, let's look at PWR here on TradingView and look at some volume ledges. Now, there's two ways you can do this. I like to look at the very beginning of the year. So I get a good idea of the year's point of control, the year's volume. Take a look. That is not an insignificant level. Christian, here's another layer. Most traders use price and more price. Price, volume, volatility, time. This is price and price-based volume at work. Keep an eye on that in that area. That's a very thick layer of volume between about 203.20 and about 199. Keep an eye on that one, Christian. Yeah, it could be interesting. You really want to see that level, that zone hold. All right. Okay, next up is good morning, gang. Stephen asks, I was wondering if you can go over your process and steps on the chart for selection and entry using my indicators. I would really appreciate. Stephen, feel free to join me in the Sector Secrets Mastery. I don't have time to put on a workshop, a mini class, and a 20-minute pre-market show. I hope you can appreciate that. But if you do have any questions about the process, come check out what we're doing in the Mastery. Come check out what I'm doing there. We do that every morning, over and over, rinse and repeat again. But I'll tell you the first step that I use. Well, let's just take a look at the NASDAQ here together, and you'll see how I get to work on this. The NASDAQ is in a neutral environment. I use the multi-trend. But if I'm going to day trade, which I'm going to do the first 65 minutes of the morning, we are also inheriting a rather neutral trend on the NAS. So the first step is always structure dictates strategy. And I'll tell you what, Stephen, regardless of what kind of indicators you're using, right? You know, and I know there's a lot of indicators many of you have running on your screen. So let's say you're a fan of, gosh, it's a really popular indicator, the squeeze, right? That is the flagship here for Simpler. It's John's indicator. I know a lot of you use it. And a lot of folks ask me, Rog, when would you use a squeeze? Two things. Put the multi-trend on your chart and use the grab candles. They are complementary, right? Multi-trend and grab work with everything. Why? Because structure dictates strategy. The more yellow the structure of the market is, the more blue grab candles I have a compressed market, and the squeeze works amazingly well. So there's things like that you can do. So if you're using other tools, don't worry about it. But the multi-chart and the grab, multi-trend and the grab will work great. I know a lot of you who are using pivots, the quant pivots, right? John just had his class for that. Quant pivots, HPMR, they're very complementary. One is a price-based tool, one is a volatility-based tool. So there are a lot of complementary things where once you understand what the structure of the market is, you can look at your array of tools that you've gotten here from Simpler, right? No sooner would a golfer have one club in their bag does a trader have only one indicator, right? There's no magical one indicator. But what every great golfer has is a way to look at the lie, way to look at the shot, way to look at how they need to get to the pin. That's the multi-trend. That's the grab candles. Then we can look at our club, our bag of clubs, right? And say, all right, I need this club and I need this club, and off they go, right? So I hope that helps. Next up is, good morning. All right, what's going on with the, I love Spot Forex and the 6J. Mark, I think, speaking of Spot Forex, on a morning like this, we've got the European Central Bank, right? And I see that D. Bolton mentioned they hiked. And yes, they are a very hawkish central bank right now. What's really interesting is a lot of that hawkishness was expected. And you'll notice the volatility in the euro was down on a day that they hiked rates. Why is that? The picture between the euro and the dollar is very tricky right now. Despite the fact that the European Central Bank, the ECB, is hiking rates, it should do a couple of things. Things like the bunds, the yield should go up. The euro should go up, right? That's the typical response to a tightening cycle or a hawkish central bank. Those things aren't happening. There's a mismatch. There's crossed wires here. Be very careful with dollar. Be very careful with euro right now, especially today in terms of the volatility we're getting, which is not quite what one would expect, right? Now, Lagarde is going to speak just like after the FOMC makes a decision and releases their rate statement. The ECB has a similar process, and then Lagarde will be speaking. But right now, gang, there is a weird mismatch. Be careful with your reads on the dollar. Be careful with your reads on the euro. Something's not quite right, okay? All right, Christian says, I'm looking to buy puts on the Jets Oh my gosh. I don't want any Jets fans hating on me. Oh my gosh. I'm just reading the question. I watched their Hard Knocks series. Yeah, I watched so I don't know how many of you watch Hard Knocks. It's on what, HBO? That was actually really interesting. I love when you get to go behind the scenes of these ball teams. And yeah, so do we have a DPMR reading on that? Ooh, I'll tell you what, right when people want to write off the Jets, right? The gangrene, because Rodgers went down with the Achilles. Unbelievable. I would not, look, Zach's got nothing to lose. Zach's got nothing to lose. And I'll tell you what, it's a very dangerous player or even trader who has nothing to lose, right? No one has any expectation. What a time to thrive, right? So I wish that team well. I'm a Pats fan. I was raised a Pats fan. I was raised a Pats, Celtic, Whalers fan, and Bo Sox, of course. So my father, when he came from India, he settled in New England, and I was raised a New England sports fan. So we're both going to suffer a little bit, Christian. Pats are probably even worse off than Jets are right now. All right, next up, you mentioned we should watch. Hey there, Alex. You mentioned we should watch consumer sentiment tomorrow morning. Does that fall under inflation? Consumer sentiment, University of Michigan, inflation expectation. So there's two releases that come from the University of Michigan on that tomorrow, on Friday. Alex, I'm not really that concerned about the consumer sentiment. I am much more interested in that inflation. And that, of course, will fall under that inflation category. All right. Anne, how are you? Could I take a look at that JP Morgan? Sure. Let me do this. So yesterday on the JP Morgan, the whole idea is I'm looking at my notes. So for those of you that are not familiar with the notes, let me show you what we do. Okay. I don't know if I can do this quickly here in the chat. All right. So I go to Wednesday, September, right? And then I scroll on down to what we wanted to do with JP Morgan. That's what I wanted to do, right? So the idea was to buy the 146. Let me go back to yesterday, which is all in here. The whole idea was to buy the 146. This is 9:36 in the morning, mind you, right? Was to buy the 146 when we sink down to 146.66. You can see where that happened in here. 25% premium risk, and then it went back up. So if I'm buying in this area could get tricky, but that's not going to necessarily stop me out. We hit our target, and that's it. So it wasn't a lot of follow through, but it at least hit our target by waiting for a price to sink down to a support level. It gives us a lot more potential upside. Now, the other trade, I had a Meta trade that got stopped out. Meta could not hold on to the allowable amount of risk. So I did have one stop out trade. That was the Meta 302.5 call. But then here's Amazon. We put trades on with the expectation that we don't know what's going to happen next. The only thing that we can control is the downside. So risk management is just hammered. I mean, hammered. It's a way of life in the Sector Secrets Master. We have spreadsheets dedicated to it. We have individual videos and notes. I mean, that's the immersion. The holy grail is risk management and position size. Now, here's Amazon. Same idea. Buy the 142 call when price sinks down to 142. There we go. That was the window of opportunity. And then we just manage that based on a first target, second target, and a time-based exit. So, which one of these is going to keep following through? If somebody asked me, Rog, which trade is going to be the winner? I would have said, yeah, maybe JP Morgan. This is why I don't guess on those things. This is why we use a fixed bet approach. This is why we put on trades and just manage what we see. Because for me to say, oh, JP Morgan's going to be the winner and put on big size, that's dumb because I can't see the future. And I'm guessing most of you can't either. So that's where we say, I don't know what's going to happen next. The only thing I can do is control my downside. So, and there you go. There's an example of two. Well, actually three. Lost in Meta, one in JP Morgan, one in XLF. So we went 3 for 4 yesterday. And frankly, I actually missed the Dow. We wanted to set up the Dow, and I just didn't get my trigger. So I put these triggers out ahead of time so everyone could figure out position size, understand risk, figure out cost. I missed that one, not because price didn't get there. I was a smidge too slow. Can't touch all the water, as they say, right? Okay, so that's a wrap, gang. I got to get on over to the the futures room and the Sector Secrets Mastery for more day trades. We're operating this week at about a 75% win rate. Things are going pretty well. Not super active, but still about 2 to 4 trades every morning. I'll see you all tomorrow, same time, same station. Be good to each other, gang. Caffeinate and dominate.